Samatvam yoga uchyate. One definition we heard. That's the first one we heard. Right? Samatvam means what? Sameness. Sameness between what and what? Samatvam yoga uchyate is one of the definitions of the word yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. But before we go there, let me begin by saying in Gita there is one wonderful definition of yoga, which is dukkha sanyoga viyoga yoga. Dukkha sanyoga viyoga yoga. What does that mean? Viyoga means disconnection. Yoga normally means connection, okay? The word yoga means that which connects. Yujyate anena iti yoga. Another meaning of the word yoga is that focusing on the mind. Samadhi. Yujir samadhau. One more meaning of the word yoga. Yoga also means context. Like you'll hear in the Gita, karma yogo nama tritiyodhyayah. It's not like another thing there. It's a title. It's a context there. So the word yoga has got so many meanings. Yoga also means jnanam. Yoga means quiescence of the mind. So what does yoga mean? Depends on the context. It's very contextual. So somebody else gave a definition. Yogaha chitta vritti nirodhaha. This is coming from Patanjali Sutras. And what do they say after that though? In Patanjali Sutras. See, if you look at Ashtanga Yoga, what does it say? We have to understand where all this fits in. So I am giving you a number of definitions from Gita first. So one I thought would help us to relate with it well is dukkha sanyoga viyoga. Dukkha sanyoga means my connection, my association with sorrow, with what I don't want. It's called dukkha sanyoga. And disconnecting myself from that connection with sorrow is yoga. Does it make sense? That I am subject to sorrow, that I'm subject to sadness. Who wants it? Anybody in this room wants it? Want to be connected with sorrow and say, I'm sad, I'm sorrowful, I'm subject to being sad, I cry all the time. Is that what we want? Nobody wants it. So any human being would like what? To be free from sorrow. But to be free from sorrow means right now you're not sorrowful. You're all here hopefully, happily in this class. But then, anytime you are subject to sorrow, that I'm subject to sorrow means there is no guarantee when I will become sad. Do I want to be sad? I don't. But if I'm subject to sorrow, I can be sad. Now, what is definition of yoga as given by Bhagavan Krishna? Yoga is a disconnection from the connection with sorrow. And this is what we all want in life. There is no exception, no human being who would say, no, I want to be sorrowful. If such is the human being, then he does not belong here, he belongs to another institution. Right? He's a special person. We have to deal with that special person separately. So this freedom from sorrow, freedom from being subject to sorrow is what traditionally in Vedanta and Gita, we will define yoga as. Now, how do we gain this freedom from sorrow? If it's gained in time through a process, say for example, you do chitta vritti nirodha. What is chitta vritti nirodha? It really means you stop your mind, really. Am I right?
No, Guruji.
No? Okay. What is your understanding?
It's restraining the modification of the minds.
Okay, fine. Let's say you want to restrain the modification of the mind. So which modification do you want and which one do you not want? See, you look into it. See, I'll give you why I said stop the mind. When do you become sorrowful? Do you become sorrowful? Anybody who's sorrowful in sleep? Let's get it straightened out first. In deep sleep, anybody who's sad?
No.
No. So when are you sorrowful? Only when your mind is up and running. Correct? Therefore, one way to stop sorrow is what? Stop the mind. Suppose you have a headache. How do you stop the headache? Chop the head off. Wonderful. Does it work or not? It seems to work. In some way, it seems to work. But the fact is, can you stop the mind? You said stopping modifications of mind. What is mind? Mind is nothing but modification. If you stop modification, there is no mind. Is there a mind? Is there a mind which is not moving? A dead mind is no mind. A mind should be like a monkey, active, alert, moving. Correct? That's the capacity of the mind. Otherwise, you will be frozen with one word. You won't hear the next word I say. The reason you are hearing me is because the mind is rapidly moving on to the next frame. It's a series of frames. So if you stop the modification of the mind, what does it mean? It says stop the mind. So do you want to stop the mind? Suppose we stop the mind. All right, we will not become unhappy. Are you happy with the mind stopped? That also doesn't work. So look, there are more meanings to it. Okay, I'm just having some fun at the cost of a few words. All right, don't mistake me here. But what I'm trying to say to you is the goal of yoga to stop the mind? That doesn't at least appeal to me. Does it appeal to you? What is needed is, can you make use of the mind when you want to make use of it, in the way you want to make use of it, and not be bothered by the mind? That's something we would like to have. So suppose I have a pair of scissors. I would use it to cut something. Not every time something appears, I start cutting it. Right? Therefore, the mind should be an instrument. The mind is an instrument. But what happens now? Is the mind an instrument? Which means you have the freedom to use the instrument when you want it. Like you with a pair of scissors. But is that how we have the mind today with us? Or is the mind leading and I'm following it? You have to imagine a dog, okay? A dog wags the tail, right? Can you imagine how it would be for a dog to be wagged by the tail? This is how our lives are many times, because the mind decides what we do. We don't seem to have a say over the mind. Therefore, chitta vritti nirodha is a good definition of some kind. But if it is modified to say selectively, which means I restrain my mind from areas which are not going to help me. So, yoga, if you look at yoga in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, what will you see? What is the main purpose of yoga? It is samadhi. Am I right? Samadhi is the goal. Then what is the limbs? Ashtanga. It is called Ashtanga Yoga. The limbs always are that which will connect to the whole. These hands don't have an independent job. The ears don't have an independent job. They all are to serve me as a person, right? In the same way, an angi. Anga means a limb. Angi is one who sports or has those limbs. So who is the angi? Samadhi is the angi here. And the 8 steps that you stop, 8 limbs are to gain that samadhi. And what are the 8 steps? Begins with what? Yama. Correct? Yama, niyama, right? Then comes asana, the famous asana, which everybody does. But first one is yama. What is yama? What is yama? I want you all to be awake. Huh?
Ahimsa, satya,
Huh.
astya, brahmacharya, aparigraha.
So ahimsa. What is ahimsa now? Let's look at ahimsa for a minute, right? Ahimsa means non-hurting. Ahimsa is non-hurting. So why do we need a rule called ahimsa? Because my tendency, my normal tendency may be to hurt for my own benefit. So the mind may cause hurt because it feels that something we gained. I cause hurt, not the mind. I cause hurt because I feel something can be gained. So what is ahimsa? To be able to restrain the mind when it is inclined to himsa. Satyam is because I'm inclined to asatyam. I might speak an untruth because it's beneficial to me. I have to pull the mind back. So you can see the restraint in these, right? So you have yama, where you are denying the normal tendency of the mind. What is niyama? Where you want the mind to do something, correct? What is niyama? What are the niyamas?
Socha Santosha Tapaswadhyaya
Correct.
Ishvara
So
Pranidhana.
you have santosha, tapaha, swadhyaya, ishwar pranidhanam. All these are what? To be done. Don't have a tendency to do them, but I have to do them. First one is I have a tendency to do, but I should avoid them. This is where yoga begins. In Patanjali Yoga. Why? Because the first step is to get the mind to be a tool for me. The human being's prerogative is freedom. A freedom to think, a freedom to do, a freedom to not do, a freedom to do differently. That freedom is normally not totally available to me because the freedom is hijacked by my compulsive desires, called in Gita language raga dvesha. It's very compulsive. There's a pressure to do something. Anger is a pressure. Desire is a pressure. You can't easily avoid them. So if I have to grow in terms of yama niyama, what do I have to do? I have to learn the ways of my own mind. The mind cannot be controlled by force. Even if it is, it will create trouble later. But if we understand clearly what serves me well and what doesn't serve me well, then my pursuit is value-based. Therefore, the yoga, from our perspective, I said is what? It is freedom from sorrow, freedom from a connection with sorrow, means totally free from sorrow. That's the goal. And the means to connect me to that goal are also called yoga. What connects me to that possible goal of being free from sorrow is also called yoga. So in Bhagavad Gita's language, we talk of yoga also as a lifestyle. So there is what? Once I know my goal is to be free from happiness, is it something I achieve in time through an effort, or is it already a fact? If it's something that is achieved in time, then it will be lost in time. Anything that is gained with an effort in time will be lost in time. If this freedom from sorrow I want to gain is not in time, then it cannot be something which is gained in time. Does it make sense to you? Whatever is gained in time will be lost in time. This is a rule. Sanyogaha viyogantaha. If two people meet, they will separate. There is no exception. What begins in time ends in time. So if happiness is an event in time, it will end in time. When do you want to be happy? Only on yoga day or all days? Huh? All
Every
day.
day.
Every day. And what time of the day do you want to be happy? Only some 1 hour a day, happy hour? No. All times. Where do you want to be happy? At home, at work, or in your car, stuck in a traffic jam? Where do you want to be happy? At all places. Relating to whom do you want to be happy? Just to your children or your spouse? Tell me. When do you want to be happy?
Everyone.
All.
With everyone.
With everyone. So you want to be happy at all times. Given a choice, right? At all places, in all situations, relating with everyone. Then you tell me, what does it mean? It means that your happiness should not depend on place, should not depend on time, should not depend on situation, should not depend on your mind even. If that is that possible? Question, is that possible? And the Shastra says, yes, it is. That you should know. But if that is possible, if it doesn't depend on time, place, situation, mind, then what does it depend on? It doesn't depend on anything. What do you mean it doesn't depend on anything? It is you. You are the happiness you want to be. This is the happiness which is being talked about by Krishna as dukkha sanyoga viyoga. Which means the problem is I take myself to be unhappy because I don't know myself as the happiness. If that is so, then the only way to know, to be that happy person all the time is not to do something, but to know that I am not subject to unhappiness. This is how Krishna begins the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. Ashocyananvashocastvam prajnavadanscha bhashase. Gatasun agatasunscha nanushocanti pandita. Second chapter, 11th verse. But in order to understand this reality requires a mind which is reasonably objective, which is able to accept situations as they come to start with. The fact is, do we control situations? Can we? Anyone? No. So situations come to us. Do we take them happily or do we resist them? Situations which you don't want, not the ones which you want, all right? The situations which are not comfortable to us, do we welcome them or do we resist them? We resist them. By resisting them, do we change the situation? Do we manage to change the situation? We don't. What is to be done has to be done. In a situation which comes, I have to act. I find myself in a situation and my only choice I have is to act, if at all. And in that action, if I have freedom, that freedom is called free will. And therefore, the definition that Bakul Joshi ji gave, I think, was Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Samatvam means what? Now you have a situation you act. In that situation, you do what you can, and the results can be what? It can be what you expected it to be. It can be less than what you expected it to be, more than what you expected it to be, or even completely opposite of what you expected it to be. These are four possible outcomes. Now, what is the attitude towards these outcomes? That is where sameness is possible. What is sameness? Whether the outcome is less, more, opposite, or equal to what I expected, I am able to accept it objectively. My example to help people understand this is you imagine you're driving your car with a GPS. Okay? Everyone now knows about GPS. You have it and you tell, you take me to some destination. And then you make a few wrong turns. What does GPS do? Does it scold you? Does it abuse you? What does it do? Does it get upset? It's constantly rerouting you, isn't it? Are you with me? It tells you, you again make a right turn, make a left turn. However you go, if you take 2 hours to reach a destination which is 10 minutes away, it will patiently reroute you every time. Have you seen that? Can we do that with reference to our situation? Whatever our goal is, we only have a choice about rerouting ourselves. We do not have a choice to change the road. It's not like the story of, the hare and the tortoise. You know the story of the hare and tortoise? The modern story, the made up story, not the old one alone. What's the story? The hare and tortoise are going for a race. What happens first? The hare is very quick. It runs, but it's so proud it runs fast, it sleeps in between. And the the tortoise slowly walks, but reaches the finish line earlier. So what's the moral of the story there? Slow and steady wins the race. Right? Now the hare said, this is not right. This is not done. All right. So let's have a race now. And now I'm not going to stop. I will run all the way. Right? It can run all the way. So what will happen now? The tortoise will win. Now, how do you win the race when this is the problem? The tortoise said, okay, we'll have another one now. Best of 3, What's third race now? It says, I will tell you which is the race track. And in the race track, there is a body of water. So the hare runs very rapidly, but it can't cross the water body. And then the tortoise comes slowly and crosses it. So if you can decide which race track you run on, you can win. All right. But then what happens? Now the modern corporate fellow walks in. What does he say? The hare and tortoise decide, okay, why should there be only one winner? Let's both be winners. So the same track is kept, but now the hare is carried by the tortoise across the lake, and therefore they both win together. Is this how life works for us? Are we able to decide everything as we like? Can we change the racetrack? Can we change the rules of the game? We can't. The rules of the game are given. Life comes to us as it does. And what choice do we have? The choice is in how do we respond to life. This is what is called, that Samatvam Yoga Uchyate, is the attitude with respect to that. And how can you accept every outcome? Only if you understand that the outcome is based on laws. Suppose I were to drop this, I have a pot right now in my hand. Suppose I were to drop it. What will happen to it? What will happen to the pot? It will go down, right? At what speed? At what acceleration? Difficult answering that? It's gravity, right?
Yes.
So it'll go down at 9.8 meters per second square. Can it go at a different pace? Can you change it? It always goes on at that pace, correct? Do you think that the water flows from a low point to a high point on its own? It always flows from high to low, right? Cyclone, which way does it move? High pressure to low pressure? Or low to high? What is the eye of the cyclone? It's a low pressure point, right? You have a depression and then everything goes there. Why? Why? Why does water boil at 100 degrees Celsius? Why does petrol catch fire earlier? Why does the density of water become, why the water at 4 degrees Celsius is different from one at 0 degrees? Why? How come plants can take water and send it up all the way? You know, in a coconut tree, it goes all the way to that green coconut and water goes in. How? How does it work? Do you think all this happens randomly? Or do you think there must be a cause for these? Is there a cause for the world we see? Or is this just accidental? The human behavior, is it just everybody's behavior is different, or they are all governed by a law? You have a law of psychology. You go to a psychologist, he will tell you, if this is the background, this is likely behavior of this person. If I have been subject to certain difficult childhood, this is how my behavior will be later. Who made all these laws? Whether you're an Indian or you're a Russian or an American or a Canadian, the same cardiac surgeon can take care of all of us, right? Why? The body works the same way. Cardiac person is a great plumber. You know, he does the same job as plumbing. The rules of plumbing work within the body. It's called cardiology. Then. You know, the poor plumber who comes to fix your tap, you don't pay him much. But if the cardiologist fixes some vessel here, you pay through your nose to it. But what's the principle? The principles of fluid mechanics and hydraulics are the same. Nothing changes, do they? You can see that there's an underlying order, a predictability to everything in the world. 50 years ago, you may not have been able to predict a depression in the bay and what it will do, when it will hit the land, etc. Today you can. That's just more knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the more predictability you have. Which means the entire thing in the Jagat, whatever happens in this world, is all governed by laws. And laws are nothing but knowledge. And all these knowledge of all these laws is what we call all-knowing, all knowledge, which resides in a conscious being. And that conscious being is what we call Ishvara. So this entire universe is governed by laws, the same laws. And so is this mind. So is this body. So is what I call me. And if we understand these laws, if we want to understand these laws, then we need to be more objective to what is. And that objectivity is what we normally call, that attitude is what we call Karma Yoga in the Gita. And when one has an objective mind, then one can understand the truth of oneself as one who is free, one who is happy for no reason except that happiness is my truth. That is what the purpose of yoga is. And that knowledge aspect of it is called Jnana Yoga. Jnanameva yoga, Jnana Yoga. Through knowledge alone, you understand the truth. But to understand the truth, you need a mind which is prepared, that is gained through Karma Yoga. And the mind also needs to be able to stay with the topic for a length of time. That is called Samadhi Yoga. Same word yoga. The word yoga is used in so many different meanings. So yoga means, basic meaning I'm saying to you is, in terms of a means, is that which connects you to something you want to get connected with. Yujyate anena iti yoga. And as I said, what do you want to get connected to? To that freedom from sorrow. Freedom from sorrow, irrespective of time, place, situation, and relationship. That will bring us to what is your theme of this yoga day. Theme is what? Vasudhaiva Kuṭumbakam. What does it mean? Vasudha means the earth. Eva is that whole earth itself is Kuṭumbakam. What is Kutumba? You know what Kutumba means?
Family.
A family. That's the basic meaning. A family. But you know what Kutumba really means? Kutumba is a root. Kutumb is a root in Sanskrit language, which means that which supports, that which holds. Right? So, what is the function of a family? It holds a person, nurtures a person. We're born into a family, right? A human being, unlike a dog or a cat also needs care. But unlike many animals, we cannot survive unless we are cared for. Can we? A little human child is totally helpless. The animals in the wild can survive. A goat is born, and if there's a predator, it can run. If you've seen the sea turtles hatching on the Orissa beaches, what do you know about them? When they're hatching, they somehow seem to know that they have to run into the ocean or become food for some predators. They seem to be programmed to know which way to run. But a human being is always to be supported to start with. Right? So your family is what? You grow related. Dhriti, that dharane, it supports. And do we think I'm only connected to family? Is there a human being who is not connected to the sun? Can there be life on earth without the sun? Is the sun an accident? Is the moon an accident? Is the moon just something, just look at it and be romantic about? Or does the moon do something more? Tides happen due to moons. Now they're talking, sometimes earthquakes may have something to do with the moon. Because the pull, the gravity is so strong. So the moon is not just a beautiful object in the sky. Are we connected to the moon? Are we connected to stars? Suppose there were no stars, what would happen? Looks like nothing will happen. We don't know. We don't know how they are all interrelated. Right? The gravity of the sun, the gravity of the earth is all keeping the solar system going. Do you think the sun would be exactly in its place unless it was regulated by other forces in the galaxy? No. So, is there anything we are unconnected with in the whole universe? Is it possible that we are unconnected? If we are connected, then in that connection, what is our role? Do we abuse Mother Earth or do we sustain it? Do we compete or do we live well unitedly? Competition means I am different, you're different. My loss is your gain is my loss. But can there be a game where we don't lose? Where everybody wins? Is winning, see, the difficulty is what? I am an individual. As an individual, I have defined myself. When I say this is who I am, do you know what I'm saying at the same time? Suppose you say, I own this apartment in a building. You know what's the other side of the argument? Other side of the same statement? I don't own this apartment, and I don't own this apartment, and I don't own this building, and I don't own this street, and I don't own. How many do you not own? When you say you own one car, what are you making a statement? You're saying, I don't own any of the other cars. Right? So if you say I own this much, you're saying I don't own so many. Is that going to be good for your mental health? Because it shows the smallness that we are in all the time. The fact is, do you achieve things? Do we achieve anything individually, or do we really achieve things because there is cooperation? Anything. If every human being plays their role, even in a machine, if every part plays its role, the machine functions. Right? Suppose you have the piston in the car is moving. It has to. And the brake has to stop movement. of the wheels. Suppose the brake also starts moving and the piston stops movement, what will happen? Nothing will work. Thing will fall apart. Every piece in the car must do exactly what's intended for. In the human body too, every cell has to do its job. The brain cell better be in the brain. If the kidney cell decide to do the brain's function, you know what will happen. Right? So each and every cell, each and every limb, each and every component in this body has a role to play. So also, each and every individual has a role to play in the total. So when we understand that the total is not really a competitive set of parts, one trying to destroy or defeat another, but it is one whole, then it's a completely different ball game. Right? So the saying that this Vasudhaiva Kuṭumbakam, interestingly, comes from what we call an Upanishad. An Upanishad, by the way, is the last part of the Vedas where the truth of yourself as being that happy being, the truth of all that is here is revealed. This is what an Upanishad does. And among the Upanishad, there is one Upanishad called Maha Upanishad, Mahopanishad. In that Mahopanishad is this statement. What is the statement? Ayam bandhuhu ayam na iti ganana lagu chetasam. Udara charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kuṭumbakam. Ayam bandhuhu. Bandhuhu means a friend, a relative. This is a relative. This is a friend. Ayam bandhuhu. Ayam na. This one is not. Iti ganana. This kind of a calculus, this kind of a thinking, laghu chetasam, is for people who are not able to think big, to see more clearly. What about the others? Those who have the generosity to see everyone's part in the whole universe. Udara charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kuṭumbakam. For a person with a larger thinking, with a larger canvas in front of him, where he sees the big picture, the whole universe, Vasudha is only earth, I'm taking it further, the whole universe is related to him. Which means I am not competing, I am a part, a contributing part, a valuable part of the whole. Therefore, society is governed not by what I grab, but what I give. No? So the relationship is more of giving. And these values, what you call as yama niyama, you look at the values in niyama or yama. Are these values only good for India? Are these values good only for today? Ahimsa. Take the first value, ahimsa. What is the value? Non-hurting. Non-hurting in what way? Non-hurting by deed, non-hurting by thought, non-hurting by word. Is there anybody, any human being, any time who wants to be hurt? Is there anyone? No. Do I or do I not know that just like I don't want to be hurt, no living being wants to be hurt? Do I know? I do. But do I extend that non-hurting to everybody or do I hurt? What's my tendency? Depends on the situation. Right? If I could grow into a person and if the whole society has a value for yama, not one person, whole society has a value, what would our society be like? Drop everything else, just hold ahimsa. What would our society be like? I don't want to be hurt and I won't hurt. The world will change. The world has to change. Right? And without being able to let my fellow being live in peace, how can I be happy? If I'm competing, which is what the world today is, in competition, how can both be happy? You write an exam called NEET, which is about getting admissions into medical colleges for a postgraduate program. Lakhs of students write it, and how many get a seat? A handful, right? A handful. What about the rest? Are they happy? You look at children now, whether it's China, whether it's Japan. The stress on the children is so much. By the time they finish high school, they have stress. So much stress that they end up in depression. Why? Because there are too few resources and too many people competing for them. There is no order in society. It is, man grab man. Man, what you grab whatever you can. It's a culture of grabbing. Consumerism is the value today in the West. Market economy is all consumerism, which means that the more you consume, the better off you are. That's not the truth, is it? Does one become happy by consuming more? Or does one become happy just being contented with what is? If consumption is what mattered, crores of people should have been unhappy all the time because they have no income to consume. But you go to any place, even a poorest child will have a smile on its face. Sometimes, at least. What does it show? That happiness does not depend on what you can consume. Economic growth does not make a person happy. $1 trillion economy doesn't mean the people are happy. What makes a person happy? Santushta, the tushti, which you talk of in niyama. And all these yama niyama will give you relative good well-being. Asana gives you well-being at the level of the body. Start with asana means you have a self-love. That self-love extends to the body and extends to the mind, then extends to the whole universe. First it is me, then it is I and my family. Then it is the whole world is my family, which means I live a life of being connected with everybody. I live a life of respecting everybody. So you can see that yoga, which means to be free from unhappiness, requires not only that I am happy, that everybody around me is also happy. If they are not going to leave me happy for long. You can see this is what is playing out in the whole world. If two neighbors are unhappy, if my neighbor is unhappy, he's not going to leave me alone. America is affluent, therefore Mexicans want to migrate. Right? They want to migrate into the country. People in India are okay, but they also look for an opportunity to go to a better place. People try to, crash into Europe on boats, which won't even carry them across. Right? So all this shows what? Our pursuit of human being is really a freedom from sorrow. The pursuit of a human being is to be happy, to be contented. And that contentment has to be discovered in one's life. And the way to discover that, a path to discover that, is yoga. So yoga is really about connecting myself to the realities. It begins as a few physical exercises, but it doesn't end there. It's just the beginning. What really counts is the ability to manage my mind, to manage my likes, to manage my dislikes in a way that I can grow out of my pettiness and grow into understanding of the Upanishad, which is Vasudhaiva Kuṭumbakam. And this same Upanishad, it's a fairly large Upanishad, and it's amazing what all it has to say. So I thought I will share a couple of things more just for what it says there. And give me 1 second. Yeah, okay. So see, the vision of the Upanishad is what? Chidaham chidime lokaha. Chidashaha chidimah prajaha drishya darshana nirbuktaha kevala amala rupavan. I didn't touch upon this aspect at all, though I mentioned the word Vedanta. The Gita also, as I said, is freedom from sorrow, to be happy all the time, freedom from being subject to sorrow. That freedom, when I say it is you, the you obviously cannot be the one who is this body. This body cannot be the source of all happiness. Neither can the mind be the source of all happiness. So when we are talking of you being source of happiness, that you, this finger, points not just to your body, not just to your mind, not just to the eye sense, it points to that you with which you are aware of all these. It points to that you who is the truth of the waker, the dreamer, and the sleeper. The dreamer is you. The waker is you. The sleeper is you. If the sleeper does not have a problem, how come you have a problem? Because the problem belongs to you. In sleep too, you should have a problem. What it shows us is fundamentally, I am free from trouble. But as a waker, I am in trouble. Which means there is an I which transcends the waker, transcends the dreamer, transcends the sleeper. That I is a conscious being who is self-existent and self-evident. It's not something remote. It is the very core being of every human being. In fact, of the whole thing, whole universe. And that is being said in this Mahopanishad as Chid Aham. I am that consciousness. Chid ime lokaha. All these worlds, the fields of experience are nothing but that consciousness alone. Chid ashaha. All our hopes and aspirations are nothing but that consciousness alone. Chidimaf prajaha. All beings are nothing but that consciousness alone. Drishya darshana nirmuktaha. It is free from being the seer or the seen. If you look at it right now, you are looking at the world right now. The world is our screen. You close your eyes for a minute, okay? Just close your eyes for a minute. What happens? Did just the sight go, or the seer and the sight both went? The seer and the sight come together, go together. The thinker and the thought come together, go together. When you're not thinking, do you exist or not? You do. A non-thinking you, non-thinking means not thinking at all. I'm just saying, for a moment when you're not thinking, who are you? Have you ever thought about it? You were doing a japa, you were doing a chanting when I came in. I was told you're meditating. What did you meditate on? So you say Ishaya Namaha. You chant Ishaya Namaha. Between two Ishaya Namaha, what is there? What is there? You tell me, do you create peace or do you create noise? Is peace created? Can you create peace? Disturbance we can create. Can you create peace? When you chant, there is a sound. Between chants, what is? Is silence created? Silence is not verbal silence. Silence is the silence of the mind. That silence of the mind is available to you even when the mind is chattering, because the chatter takes off from which silence, merges into which silence. That silence, that quietude, that peace is you. And that you is what yoga has to reveal. And if that you is revealed, if you're able to say, Chit Aham, I am this consciousness, everything is nothing but that consciousness, then is there any difficulty in saying Vasudhaiva Kuṭumbakam? The whole universe is my family because I'm related to everything. There is nothing apart from me. In fact, all that is here is just one reality, which is happens to be me, to be discovered, to be understood. But if it's understood, what more is to be understood? There's nothing more to do in the world. That is the vision of the Upanishad, of the Mahopanishad, from where this quotation, Vasudhaiva Kuṭumbakam, is picked up. And that is made possible by a life of discipline, a life where the mind is available to me as an instrument, and that is gained by yoga. That's what yoga will be. Yoga is both the means, and yoga as knowledge will be the end too. All right.